Hello everyone. Hi. Hope you all guys can hear me. Yeah. Any questions for me before I get started? Okay. Okay. If no questions, then we'll move further. Right. I hope you were able to solve the assignments. What I asked you, what I gave it in the last session. Okay. So let's move on to the collection framework from Java. Hmm. Okay. Here is the collection hierarchy. Collection framework hierarchy in Java. You see the topmost, that's a collection which is an interface. The topmost what you see is collection which is an interface. So you have an interface collection, and that interface got children. There are child interfaces called set, list and the queue. Now this is gonna be the topic of discussion. Why three child interfaces? Collection is an interface. And what is the definition of the interface? Interface is a collection of abstract methods and constant variables. Interface is a collection of abstract methods and constant variables. Right? So already you have an interface which is a collection. Then why do we need, of course, as we know, can we create object for interface? No. One cannot create object of the interface. One cannot create object of the interface. So when we cannot create object of the interface, then what do we need? We need a classes implementing the interface. We need a classes implementing the interface. But what do you observe here? What do you observe here? Instead of classes implementing the interface collection, you see interfaces here, set, list and the queue. You see interfaces here, set, list and the queue, extending the collection, because the interface cannot implement another interface. So interface can extend another interface. So set, list and queue are what? They are the child interfaces of the collection interface. So first let's look at what exactly the collection got. So you have two options. You can go to the command prompt, the DOS prompt, and you can set the path. So once you set the path, you can test all the commands. Java C command works. Then Java command works. Then Java hyphen version, it will tell you the runtime environment. Excuse. Then you also can see Java C hyphen version. This is compile time, your development environment, your compiler. Then there is something called Java P. Then there is something called java.util package. Then there is something called collection. So when I say Java P space java.util.collection. Now what it is, it's also an interface, but again a surprise, it is extending iterable. So it is again extending another interface called iterable. Then what are the methods you see in the collections? Or in case if you want to see the methods of iterable, that is also possible. What happened? It's in java.lang, it's not in java.util. Now if you see, it got a method called iterator. There is only one method inside. So iterable is an interface which belongs to java.lang, and extending that java.lang iterable interface is your java.collection, java.util.connection. Now what is the only method you see in the iterable interface? Iterator. In the iterable interface, the only method you see is iterator. So your collection, your java.util.collection is extending iterable. So it also extend the method iterator. Then if you see here, you see a lot of methods like size, is empty. What is size? It will tell you the size of the collection. It checks whether your collection is empty or not. It checks whether the given objects exist in the collection, contains. Iterator is used to travel across all the elements. Now toArray is converting your collection object to array. Then you got to add method to add the items to the collection, remove method to remove it, contains all, checks whether the group of items exists or not, add all, you can add group of items to the existing collection, remove all, you can remove group of items from the existing collection, retain all, then you have a clear which will clear all the elements from the collection, equals checks for equality, and you got your hash code. I'll get back to the significance of hash code later again. The hash code plays very prominent role in your Java. Right? Your hash code is the method which is not specific to collection framework. For every Java object, there is a hash code associated. So I'll come back to the discussion of the hash code later. So I want you to observe the methods in the collection, and just now from the collection hierarchy diagram, we found that there are 3 interfaces extending the collection. So let's see what exactly they have to offer. I start with set. Now in the set, what do you see? You see almost Java P space java.util.set. Now it is extending collection. But if you see, you have almost same methods, right? Is empty, contains, iterator, toArray, add, remove, contains all, add all, retain all, remove all, clear, equals, hash code. Then what is the difference? You see the same methods. Whatever the methods you see in the collection, you see it in the set also. But if you look at the list, you see more methods. You see more methods. You see get, you see set, you see add, you see remove, right? You see a little more methods, last index of, right? You see few more methods in comparison to, alright, collection. So you acquire most of the methods from the collection and you add more methods to the list. Then same thing if you want to look at the queue, right? Now it is extending collection, but it got very less methods. Add, remove, poll, element and the field. Right. Now here the thing is, now we need to understand what is the difference between the set, list and the queue, other than the number of methods in the interfaces. What is the difference between the set, list and the queue other than the number of methods in the interfaces? And we found that, by looking at the Java P profile, Java P stands for Java profile. So profile of every class, I found that there are methods. But the set got the same methods as in collection, whereas list got more methods, queue got lesser number of methods. Right. So what is the difference between the three? So let me list down the differences between the three. Now we are into day 12. I'm creating a package. With 12. I'm just creating a normal file. Now here I write what is set, what is list, what is queue. Set, no duplicates. Set, no duplicates. List, duplicates allowed. Right, when it comes to queue, you have only one option. The first in, the first out. The first in, first out. So what is the big difference between the set and the list? Set, it don't allow duplicates, whereas list allow duplicates. When it comes to queue, it follows the principle called the element which is added first is the element which will go out first. Right? Now, these are all interfaces, right? So what do you mean by interfaces? Right? What do you mean by interfaces? The above listed items are interfaces. The above listed items are interfaces. And interface is what? Interface is a collection of constant variables. Interface is a collection of constant variables and abstract methods. Interface is a collection of constant variables and abstract methods. Alright. So when it comes to if those interfaces got abstract methods, how am I gonna use them? So do you expect all the programmers across the globe to implement these interfaces? Do you expect all the programmers across the globe implement these interfaces? Yes, that is what I do, because interfaces, objects cannot be created for interfaces, and interfaces got abstract methods. When I say abstract methods, they got no implementation. Then people should write their own logics, the way we have written the logics in the last class. If you look at the last class, I developed my own queue, I developed my own stack, then I started developing my own linked list. Then if everybody start developing their own logics, then here there is something point which you need to capture. What is the point if everybody started writing the logics? And these kind of stuff are reusable things. The stack, queue, linked list are reusable components in every application development. Then why you expect everyone to develop it again and again and again? And other thing is, they can develop it, but will they be able to write the efficient code? Everybody across the globe will be able to write the efficient code. So these are the things which comes into picture. So what they did is, since they are reusable, so we don't need to program, the programmers don't need to write or don't need to implement those interfaces. So they already provide the implementations, right? Your Java, or you can say collection framework from Java, provided the also provided the implementations of above interfaces. So I'll be listing them. For set, these are the implementations. Hash set is the implementation. Linked hash set is the implementation. Tree set is also an implementation. But if you closely look at the hierarchy, for set there are two implementations, hash set and linked hash set. But when it comes to tree set, it is implementing sorted set, whereas sorted set is a child interface of set. So tree set is not direct implementation of the set. Your tree set implements sorted set, whereas your sorted set extends set. So I'm going to discuss the differences of the three. What is the differences between the hash set, linked hash set and a tree set. Then comes the list. Now for this list there is an implementation called array list. There is an implementation called linked list. For a list you have what? There is an implementation called array list, there is an implementation called linked list, and there is also another implementation called vector. And for queue, who is implementing queue? Linked list also implements queue. That's what it's as per the hierarchy. So linked list also implements queue, and it also implements queue. It also implements the interface list, and there is a priority queue. And there is a priority queue. Then there is one more stuff which is completely different from. So what is this set, list and the queue? Alright, collection, it's an interface. Then you got set, list, queue, extends collection. But we have completely a different one called map, right? And you also have map is also an interface, and this map got implementation classes, like you got a hash map, linked hash map, then you got a hash table. They provide the implementations for map, and you also have a tree map here, but tree map implements sorted map, whereas sorted map is extending map. Your tree map implements your sorted map, and that extends the map. Right? So I'll be discussing about this part later, arrays and collections. I'll be discussing that later. So this is what your hierarchy, and I discussed the differences between the interfaces, set, list and the queue, and how map is different from the set, list and the queue. Right. Map stores in the form of key and value pairs, key and value pairs, whereas set, list and the queue only stores values. Set, list and the queue only store values. Map stores it in the form of key value pairs, whereas set, list and queue only store values. So let's get into the detail of each one. I would like to get started with array list, or let me say list demo. Now what I am doing here is I am creating an object. I'm creating an object for array list. Now the important point about the collection framework is it's a collection of objects. The collection framework significance is it's a collection of objects. It's a collection of objects. Then what is the big difference? Array is also can be a collection of objects. Array is a collection of values. Array is also a collection of objects. Then what is the significance of collection framework? Collection framework is a collection of objects, but these objects can be a similar or dissimilar in nature. They can be similar or dissimilar. Whereas when it comes to array, your array is only similar data types. Array is a collection of similar items. Array is a collection of similar items. Whereas collection framework is a collection of similar as well as dissimilar items. So if you see you have an array list, then using this array list I can add items. Alright, so what all I can add? I can add a string. If you observe carefully, I can add a string and I can add an integer. But if you observe, I told you what? I told you that collection framework is a collection of objects. Collection framework is what? It's a collection of objects. Then how come I can add 23? 23 is a number, right? Then I'm adding x. What is x? X is a variable. I said collection framework is a collection of objects, but if you see I'm adding all the values here. Right? I'm adding a string object, I'm adding this, I'm adding this. I can also do this. Array list dot add new integer. This is something right. I'm adding an integer object. So what exactly is, there is a feature called auto boxing. There is a feature called auto boxing. Now what is this auto boxing feature is, it converts wrapper types to objects, right, automatically. Now this feature is available. This auto boxing feature is available only from JDK 1.5 onwards. This auto boxing feature is available only from JDK 1.5 onwards. It's not there before. This auto boxing feature is not available before. So in case if we use JDK 1.4, this might have given you a compile time error, and even this compile time error it might have given you when if you are using JDK 1.4. But since you are using JDK 1.5, your value, your variable type gets converted into object type, right? Now, fine. You successfully, what you did, you added different types. I can also add a boolean here. I can also add a boolean. So it's not that I only have a method to add, but do I have a method to display? No. For display, I depend on lot of options. For display, I depend on lot of options. Observe here what all the options I have. Displaying elements of array list. I'm using a for loop. Then as usual your array starts with 0. I is 0, but how long it goes? Array list dot size on I++. Then I say so. Then array list dot get of I. This is one option to print. Then you see it on the console. I added around first, then 23, then 34, then a 45, then a true. Now this is one option for printing. Displaying the elements of array list using regular for loop. Using regular for loop. But now I have a specialized for loop. Displaying elements using specialized for loop. How do we do that? Look at this. What did I store into the collection framework? Different types of objects. So I'm writing here. Look. After the colon you have the collection. After the colon you have the collection. And before the colon you have the destination. The destination is object. Why the destination is object? Because object is the parent class of all the classes in Java. And a parent can hold the address of any child. Object being the parent of all the classes in Java, and a parent can hold the address of any children. It can hold the address of a child. So you are storing array, you have array list. Array list is a collection of objects. Objects can be similar or dissimilar. Now in this case I have dissimilar objects. I have a string, I have an integer, I have a boolean. Then at a time I'll read one value and I store into an object. Why object? Because it's a parent. Now if I write integer here, then string object cannot be stored into this. If I write boolean here, then integer and string cannot be stored into this. So what should I write? I should write object. Being a parent, it can hold the address of any child. So this is one option. Now there is another option also. When I was using Java P, Java profile, when I was using Java profile, Java P, then there was an iterator method inside, because your collection interface was extending iterable, and iterable belongs to java.lang, and iterable got one method called iterator. Now I will be demonstrating how do we use it. Iterator is array list dot iterator. Understand, iterator is an interface, it's not a class. You cannot create object of it. Iterator, it's an interface. It's an interface, you cannot create object of it. Then how do we read the elements now? So array list dot iterator means whatever the elements you have in the array list, you are not assigning into iterator. Now what happens is, this is point which is very, very crucial. The address of the array list is being assigned to iterator. Then I am ensuring whether there is an object or not. If there is an object, then I print it. If there is an object, then I print it. Yeah. Any questions on what I covered so far, or is all good?
Hi Arun.
Hi.
When you say the address of the array list is being assigned to the iterator, do you mean that it is the first element of the array list that is being assigned?
Yeah, see, it's a address of the first element only will be assigned, but it's Java, so actually we don't speak about addresses, because in Java the pointer concept, we don't use it explicitly.
Okay.
Right, the explicit usage of point, yeah, you are correct. The address of the first element only.
Okay. So here the array list has all the features of a linked list. So what is the purpose of using an array list which behaves exactly like a linked list?
No, you got it wrong. Array list, can you come again with your statement? You said linked array list got all the features of linked list?
It looks like that.
No. Actually, the thing is, linked list got all the features of array list, but not array list got the features of linked list. What is the differences is, do you remember the last program which we did? We developed our own implementation of the linked list.
Right.
Okay. What is the difference between the array and the linked list is, when I try to allocate memory for array, the memory, it looks one beside the another. It tries to look for the contiguous memory allocations.
Okay.
Whereas linked list, it doesn't look for the contiguous memory allocations. Array thinks of the complete big picture. It tries to think of all the elements it's going to store when it comes to array. Whereas your linked list, it won't think of all the elements. It only think of the current element. And when the next element comes, right, the first element keeps the address of the second element. So the second element need not to be beside the first element. It can be anywhere. So when it comes to memory management of the linked list is very powerful in comparison to the array. Right.
Okay.
Then there is one more. Go ahead.
So the array list is behaving like an array then. It will look for the entire memory.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And the difference is, the other thing is, but array is quicker. When it comes to, suppose there will be a interview question too. But when you go for linked list and when you go for array list, when you are involving lot of operations on adding and removing, suppose you have a list. Now to the list you want to add more elements or you want to remove elements, then your array is not efficient. Your linked list is efficient.
Okay.
Because when you, in case if you add element to the array or if you remove element from the array, you need to rearrange them. Suppose there are 5 elements in the array and you are removing the third element, then what happens? You need to rearrange, right?
Right.
So the insertion and deletion on array list is a pain because you end up in doing a rearrangement. Whereas in the linked list, you don't do that. In linked list, the adding, insertion and deletion is much easier. But whereas in linked list, if you want to read the data, means if you are using the list only for the purpose of reading, then array list is efficient, not linked list. Because in linked list, elements are not together. You just need to check whether next element exists or not, then you get the address of the next element, then you traverse to the next element. So in short I can say that if your job is involving more of the insertion and deletion, go for linked list. If your job is more of like reading the data, then go for array list.
Array list. Okay. And one more thing, when you created the array list, you didn't allocate like the number of cells required. You looks like it's unlimited.
Here the memory allocation is dynamic.
Okay.
Here the memory allocation is it's not exactly the same as array. Okay. So if you use normal array, you have to specify the size. But if you use array list, you don't need to specify the size. Its size grows dynamically.
But it will always allocate the items next to each.
It looks for contiguous memory allocations.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, when it comes to iterator, okay, so it's simple. What we need to do is, you have an array list. On the array list, when you invoke the method iterator, the address of the iterator is being assigned to the address of the array list is being assigned to the iterator, right? So what exactly it is if you look at, a parent can hold the address of the child. A parent can hold the address of the child. So what is this? If you look at this, collection interface is implementing iterable interface. Whereas if it is your iterable interface got one method. What is the method? Iterator. And what is the return type? Iterator. The method is iterator. The return type is iterator. So what is happening here is, your collection is extending iterable. Collection is extending iterable. Then your list extends collection. Your list extends collection, and your array list implements. Your list extends collection, and your array list implements list. So a parent can hold the address of the child. When I say array list dot iterator, what it is returning? It is returning the address of the array list only. So this iterator is representing the address of the array list. So you say here iterator dot has next. You are ensuring whether it got the next element or not. So your has next method returns a boolean and returns true when next element exists, and returns false when no element exists. So you ensure that has next. There is an element, then you come here. Then your iterator dot next use that element. Use that next element. That's it. And there is one more interesting thing here if you want to observe. This iterator got not only has next and next, it also got remove method. Now what happens when I call this remove method? It removes that element. But will it remove the element from iterator, or it also removes it from the array list too? So that's the reason I bring this discussion. When I say array list dot iterator, the address of the array list is being assigned to the iterator. So normally we talk about actual parameters and formal parameters, right? So what is happening is normally, okay, let me take that MS Paint. That I think is called. Okay. Yeah. Now imagine this is your array list. Then when normally what happens is, oh sorry, now this is array list and this is iterator. So when I say array list dot iterator, this is not happening. Means I am not creating a separate copy. When I say array list dot iterator, this is not happening. It is not creating a separate copy. Suppose if separate copy is created, then it will be good. I call this as array list and I call the below one as iterator. But is this what happening? No, this is not happening. What is happening is, to the same array list, I am giving a name as an iterator. Now when I say iterator dot remove, I am removing from the array list only. I am removing from the array list only. So when I say iterator dot remove, it not only removes from iterator but also from array list. Why? Because the address of the array list is being assigned to the iterator. Right? You have this option for remove, but what is recommended to use iterator only for purpose of reading and not for modifications. This is not recommended to use. So when you say array list dot iterator, it returns the address of the array list and gives to the iterator. and iterator got an efficient method called hasNext to determine whether it got the next item or not, and also got a method called next to get the next item, and it also got a method called remove, but this is not recommended to use because it's not only removes from the iterator but also from the array list. Yeah. Any questions more on this, or is it good? Right.
Yeah, Arun, what element does the iterator.remove method remove? Is it the last element?
Now iterator.remove removes the element which iterator is pointing to. So iterate now at this position, what is that element which iterator is removing? The element which it has pointed to. So it's in a loop, right? So for every cycle it removes one element. So first it removes the first element because it was pointing to the first. Next it removes the next element, the second element, because it was pointing to the second. But in this case, if I place this outside, you completed the loop, right? Since you completed the loop, after at the end of the loop, it will be pointing to the last element. So what it will be removing? It will be removing the last element. So iterator.remove removes the element which it is pointing to.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Next, you also have one more option for this, that is called as list iterator. Here you need to say array list dot list iterator. Instead of iterator, you need to say array list dot list iterator. Then what is the significance of this is it can travel in both the directions. Whereas your iterator, it can move only in forward direction. You cannot come back. Whereas this stuff, the list iterator, it can move in both the directions, forward as well as backward. You got a hasNext method which checks whether the next element exists or not, and it got a next method that gives me the next item. Then you also have something called hasPrevious. That moves as previous and previous, that moves in backward direction. And this is available only on the list iterator, not on the iterator. And there is one more thing to the list iterator is, from the iterator you can only remove, but list iterator, what it can do is, it can also add. With the help of list iterator, one can add alright. One can add using list iterator, but again the same recommendation applies here. Use the list iterator for reading purpose, not for modifications. So this is all about your list and the different ways of reading it. So I didn't discuss much about the list actually, array list. What I discussed much was how do we read the elements from the list. There is a normal for loop I can use, there is a for each loop, there is a iterator, there is a list iterator. Now I would like to talk a little more about the array list. Restricted array list demo. So I'll let you know why did I name this. Observe, I'm creating an array list object, and while creating the object, there are some angular brackets which are getting generated. While creating the objects, there are some angular brackets which are getting generated. Then within that I specified integer. Now what does that mean? It indicates that this list only allows integers. Collection framework is a collection of objects. Objects can be as similar or dissimilar, but with the help of this angular braces, or we call it as this concept as generics. We call this concept as a generics. With the help of this generics concept, we can restrict it to one particular data type. And in case if you try to add another data type, it throws you an error, compile time error itself. It's not applicable for these arguments. What 34, 45, 56. You can also add the object type, and I already spoke about this auto boxing. You don't need to do it object type. You can simply pass the integer values, and auto boxing happens automatically. And this feature is included from JDK 1.5 onwards. Now let's start using the Foreach loop. I added the elements, and it's not that you only have the elements to add. You got the elements, you got the methods. Sorry, you only got the methods to add. You also got the methods to remove. And if you can see, you can remove 67. And it allows duplicates, so you can add it duplicates too. Right. 34 I added it again and again, and 67 I added and I removed it. So similarly, you got a lot of other methods. You can check for existency, you can determine the size. If you look at this, you have n number of methods. You can keep experimenting with all of them if you want to do it. So I added all the elements to the integer list. Now I would like to demonstrate how do I read it, because I restricted the items to only one particular type. Displaying elements of restricted array list. And I go with a for loop. I go with a for each loop. I'm not writing an object here. Now if you observe, I'm writing an integer, because this array list got only integers. This is using Foreach loop, and in case if you want to use iterator, then there also you can specify in the angular brackets, you can specify integer. Oh, you got index out of bound size 8. What is it? You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then I'm trying to add an integer. Okay. Hey, here when I say 67, it is looking for the index, the position 67. That's the reason you got the exception. You see this exception message? Okay. Hey, Ishita, you were asking, right? This array list follows array implementation only. So that's the reason you got this exception, index out of bound exception. If it is a linked list, you don't get that exception.
Right.
But you will have some other exception. But here you see index out of bound because it follows the array implementation. And here it is trying to look for the index 67. But we have only the size is 8. So here, instead of, when I say remove, I should not say number. I think this is, I need to do remove integer of 67. Now it will start searching for the value 67 instead of the index 67. Okay. Search for value 67 and removes it. Whereas if you try to do this, integer list dot remove and you say 67, what it is trying to do? It tries to remove the element at position 67. Yes.
Hi Arun, you said no, it allows the duplicate value. So if he says both two 67s are there, then if he say remove 67, which one it will delete?
Okay, perfect. Look at this. Oh, you already have 34 twice, right?
Yeah.
Let me try to do that. Now, after removing 34, I am displaying the data again. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. What happened? Okay. This I need to comment it out. What happened?
So the first one is deleted?
Yeah. So what is happening is the first occurrence gets deleted.
Okay.
Since it got a duplicate, the first occurrence gets deleted. Perfect. Thanks for asking this. All right. So this is all about your array list. Then what about the linked list? You will have more methods than this, but as I said earlier, linked list linked list class follows the linked list implementation. Array list follows the array implementation. And the other thing is what I was talking about. Linked list is sequential in nature. Because why it is sequential in nature? You cannot directly jump to the fifth element. I'll tell you what does this sequential in nature means. What is this linked list follows? Linked list follows the concept of linked list. The first element keeps the address of the second, second keeps the address of the third, third keeps the address of the fourth, fourth keeps the address of the fifth. So if I want to point to third element, can I reach the third element? No, you cannot reach the third element. You need to first go to the first element, then second element, then third element, then fourth element. right? So that's the problem with your linked list. If you want to reach the third element, you cannot directly reach the third element. You need to go to the first, then second, then you reach the third. So linked list is sequential in nature, so they are not efficient. They are not efficient for reading. They are not efficient for reading data. Whereas array list is not sequential, it is random access in nature. I'll tell you why I'm calling it as random access in nature. Because what is the how do you access fifth element of array? This is how you do it. This directly takes you to the fifth element. Because your first element don't keep the address of the second, or your second element don't keep the address of the third. They are random access in nature. So why they are random access in nature? Because they share the memory locations contiguously, one beside the another. So when I say array of 4, I am pointing to the address, so I can directly read that. Whereas you don't have this feasibility with your linked list. If you want to reach the fourth element, you have to travel from first to fourth. So linked lists are sequential in nature, so they are not efficient for reading. Array list is random access in nature, so they are very good for reading. They are good for reading the data. I mean, they are reading the data from the array list. When I say good, it is very efficient. It takes less time to read the data from the array list. Whereas the other part is, if you have frequent insert and delete, then linked list is efficient. Because in linked list you don't need to rearrange the elements. If you want to add element in the middle, go there, just add it. You don't need to rearrange. Frequent insert and delete, linked list is efficient. Whereas the frequent insert and delete array list is not efficient. Why it is not efficient? As I need to rearrange elements, after every insertion and deletion. So my time will be lost while performing my insertion and while performing the rearrangement. Every time I insert, rearrangement. Every time I delete, rearrangement. Whereas in linked list, you don't have the headache of rearrangement. So you need to figure out in your requirement, you just want to read the data from the collection, use array list. Or you're going to manipulate your list, then you have to use linked list, because it takes very less time, because it avoids rearrangement of the elements. Alright, so I hope no questions on this part. Let me move on to the set. Oh, there is one more thing, right? We have a list, we have a linked list, we have array list. Now there is something called vector. Now this vector, what is the difference between your vector? Vector and array list are similar in nature. They are random access. That is simple words. They use array implementation. Then what is the difference between the vector and array list? Vector methods are synchronized. So I cannot say anything beyond this, because in order to understand synchronized, we need to understand threads. Vector methods are synchronized, whereas array list methods are not. And for vector, there will be an initial capacity. For vector, initial capacity is 10. That is, initial capacity is 10 in the sense it can accommodate 10 elements, but the moment it reaches the capacity, it increments the capacity That is when 10 elements are stored, when 10 elements are stored, then automatically it resizes it. It resizes. When I say resizes, it increases in size. Of course, same thing happens with array list also. But in array list, you don't need, there is no initial capacity. Whereas in vector, there is an initial capacity of 10. Once it reaches the 10, it increases the size. Whereas for array list, there is no initial capacity. You keep adding, it keep accepting. Linked list also, you keep adding, it keeps accepting. But linked list follows the linked list implementation, whereas array follows the array implementation. That is, for array list, the memory need to be contiguous. For linked list, the memory need not to be contiguous. Then I'll be talking about the vector a lot later because vector methods are synchronized. So I'll be getting into the discussion of vector when I start discussing the threads again, when I start discussing the threads. Now let's quickly move on to the set part. Now set also same, collection of objects, and it can be similar objects or it can be dissimilar objects. The objects can be same or the objects can be different. Right? And there are 3 different implementations of the set. One is hash set, and I'm just storing integers into it. And I'm trying to add 23 again. Let's try to figure out the size. Number of elements. You see the number of elements are 4, whereas I call the add method for 5 times. I call the add method for 5 times, but the number of elements are only 4. So what happens? It compares the add method. The add method compares the element with existing elements in the set and then stores it if not found. Right. It compares with the existing elements in the set and it stores it if not found. If it is found, it ignores. Then how do I read elements of the set? So elements of the set can be read using Foreach loop, Here we go. And you also have the option for using iterator. You have the option of using iterator, but you don't have the option of using list iterator. List iterator cannot be used on set. The reason, I'll let you know. But if you observe carefully the output, is it the same order what you entered? 34, 23, 56 and 45. You got 23 first, 34 next, 45 next, 56 next. But if you look at the output, is it returning you in the same order? This is the problem with the hash set. Right? The order of insertion may or may not equals order of what we call while inserting whatever the order you have, order of out, I won't say insertion, order of in may or may not equal to order of out. And this is the reason, right? Order of in may or may not equal to the order of out. That is the problem with your hash set. You have a for each loop, you have only iterator. Then instead of hash set, you can use linked hash set. You can use linked hash set. One can use linked hash set. But this time you see the order guarantee. Whatever the order you entered, you find it in the same order. Then there is one more called preset. There is one more called preset. You see the data in the increasing order. Okay, let me violate something here. After 45 I put 43. Now you see the difference of preset. Preset will give you in the sorter order 23, 34, 43, 45, 56. Whereas linked hash set, it gives you the same order as it was entered. 45, 43, 56. So here hash set order of in may or may not equal to order of out. Linked hash set order of in equals to the order of out. Whereas your tree set, right, it gives you the data in the increasing order. It gives you the data in the increasing order. Right? So if you use preset, the data gets sorted automatically. The data gets sorted automatically. Now for set, if you are having elements in a set, you can sort it with the help of preset. But when you have elements in the list, how do you sort it? When you have elements in the list, how do you sort it? Then there is something called collections. Look at this, not collection. Collection is an interface. I have something called collections. Then collections.sort and pass the array list, whatever the array list you have. Then after passing the array list, and you can just print it, and you see the data in increasing order. So for array list, you need to depend on a method called sort, which belongs to collections. A method called sort, which belongs to collections, to sort the data. Whereas for set, you have an implementation called preset that can itself sort the data for you. I think it's maybe in a day 2, not day 3. When did I discuss array concepts to you? Okay, fine. There is also one more option. For collection framework, you have collections.sort, right? For collections framework, you have collections.sort. For normal arrays also, we have something like this. So when you have these elements, then you can use arrays.sort and you can pass an array. You need to import this array. That's it. So this arrays, it's a class, not your array. Arrays is a class in java.util, the way collections is a class. So our collections is used for list, arrays is used for array. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. Any questions on what we covered so far? Or any questions on today or maybe previous classes? We are not involving delete operation, right? So since you are not involving a delete bank, delete account, so you can go with array list. Array is a painful one, right? When you look at your array concept, it is very painful. You have to write a lot of logics. So instead of array, you can use array list. Instead of array, you can use array list or linked list. But since we are not involving a deletion of the account or deletion of the customer, so stick to array list. But if you want to involve deletion of a customer account, then you can go with the linked list. So anyone else? You got a question or no? All right. So I'll share, as usual, I share this notes and Shiva will help you with the recordings. I hope you received the recordings of the last class, right? And in case not, let me know. I'll check with Shiva. All right. And I think I'll be emailing you a few questions and I expect you guys to be replying it. All right. You just need not to, you need not to put a lot of explanation on it. You can put the you can reply them with one single line answers, right? A few interview point of questions I'll try to email it on day-to-day basis, and you can find the answers and reply back. Alright, if no questions, thanks everyone. Catch you in the next session then.